Episode 7. This is Dan. My friend Rael is currently currently out of town right now with his family, so he's doing well. He really wanted to be here, but tonight we got a really special guest. He I've been friends with him almost a long time already, 18 some odd years already and counting. He is one of the my opinion, he's one of the OGs, like originals, OGs from Niketalk. And I'm just fortunate that he also became a good friend. And to this day, like he is, he's a good person, got a kind heart, and he has a lot of stories to tell us today. About his journey, about where he is now in his life. Uh, Tonight we have our friend Kevin Bailey, aka Eyes of Hazel of Niketalk. How you doing tonight, Kevin?
Yes, sir, man. Good evening, man. I'm so honored and privileged to be a part of the Dandin and RJ Machismo podcast. Before you guys blow up and go on ESPN and Fox and so forth, I can say I was here at the very beginning, and I know you guys are going to do great things, and I'm so glad to be part of the infancy and the very beginning of something that's going to be absolutely wonderful and great for years to come. So thank you guys for inviting me. Thank you guys for what you all are doing, because it's not going to be like every other podcast. I know that already. So congratulations in advance for all of your success.
Oh, thank you so much. So, I had to wear the number 7. It's not a Joe Theismann. It's a Dwayne Haskins jersey, you know, with the whole, and, we can touch with the whole name thing with Kevin. He's a
Definitely.
diehard DMV sports guy. We banter about sports every day, we're like Sports Center, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, we're like undisputed with Skip and, Shannon Sharp. So, it's all in good fun. So, a nice icebreaker, Kevin. Tell us more about yourself.
Wow, man. Just to be very short and not so long-winded, I am originally from Washington, D.C., born and raised in George Washington Hospital, May 16th of 1980. Um, I am a product of um, neighbors who became my parents, and being a part of the city. A lot of my aunts and uncles lived on that same block, the 500 block of Shepherd Street in Northwest. So that block in DC has a whole lot of history because I guess everyone went to the same school, same high schools, lived right beside each other. So a lot of people hooked up, and I was a part of that, and all my cousins and everything. So it's just interesting how that went down, and that was just a city thing, I assume. But currently, I'm living in Richmond, Virginia, for the simple fact that it got a point into which the cost of living in DC I thought was way too much. So I can easily just go right up or down 95, hour and a half with no traffic, 2 hours with traffic, and be right back down here. Have a wife and a daughter. I have been married. It will be, gosh, how many years? 16 years
Wow.
in a few weeks. And we've been together 21 years in a few
Oh,
weeks. And I have
congratulations.
a daughter that will be 12 years old. She's 12 years old now, I'm sorry. She will be 13 in October. But the reason I came to Richmond is to go to Virginia Commonwealth University. I was a freshman back in 1998. And coming to the city, it was different than DC. I wanted something that was like DC, but not as fast as DC. And Richmond was perfect, and it's still perfect for me now. So that's the reason why I'm here in Richmond. And as many times I tried to leave Richmond, VCU and other employers made sure that I stayed. So I'm still here till this day, and I'm just enjoying the Southern hospitality here. It has its issues like everywhere else, but it's just a lot slower here still with the city atmosphere. So it's not as crazy getting sneakers. It's not as crazy going to a Walmart like the DC area. Like I have 8 Walmarts within a 3-mile radius, 4-mile radius of my
Wow.
house. If I live in DC, I have to either go to either Georgia Avenue, Laurel, or Branch Avenue, which is a half an hour either way you go. So it's like the craziness with the traffic and everything isn't bad down here. So I would say I love Richmond, Virginia, all this heart of Confederacy. We have no issues now with statues and everything else. But this is my home. It's been my home since 98. So I'm not one of them people that walk around and say, well, I'm from New York or I'm from DC. I'm like, well, how long you been in Richmond? 25 years. No, you've been in a place for 15, 20 years. You might as well claim that place. I'm one of the people that I claim Richmond, but people know the way I walk, the way I talk, what I wear. You can see easily where I'm from, and I'm definitely from uptown DC, no question. I represent that, until I die, definitely.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice that you still remember where you came from, especially you're from, DC, and you rep, of course, like where you are now in Richmond, Virginia. First and foremost, how's everything with your family? You guys doing well? Staying safe over there in your area?
Always, man. Just to God be the glory. I just kind of follow the Holy Spirit and kind of have Him direct things. But for the most part, man, outside of just the lack of socialization, when you have a preteen who is into cheerleading and soccer, and extracurricular activities, coding and so forth, and not being able to do that with her peers, I think it's a very critical time for my daughter and for other preteens out there and around the world. So I'm concerned about that, particularly with the younger kids like your son and folks who are between pre-K and second grade, like those skills you have with conflict mediation, communication, even your body language and so forth. You learn those skills now at really the most opportune times when you don't really think that you're learning a whole lot. And a lot of children are not going to experience that. So I'm very concerned about that. So I got to be in prayer about that. But outside of that, man, as far as safety and so forth, we are doing extremely well. And everyone I'm connected to or know, including yourself, are doing well as well. So I'm very happy about that.
Oh yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, like I said, Kevin, you have a very beautiful family. Love your, and your. I'm glad your family is doing well. So good to hear about that. So the good
Definitely.
part, my next question for you, and part of the reason, like not the part of the reason, but we want to know like what you got into sneakers.
Gotcha. I'm like everyone else, man, from our era, if you will. I am a product of um, when I was born and where I was born, and the era I was born in. And that's as simple as that. So um, I can tell you, during the Reagan era, Reaganomics, a lot of things that people now historically read about or see about or see documentaries on as far as DC in the 80s. I was right in the thick of it. I lived that. And I can tell you that between having my dad who had 12 other brothers and sisters. So I had, God be the glory to a couple of my aunts and uncles that have passed away, but I had 12 other aunts and uncles who were all between 1 to 3 years apart, all lived on that same block. So, and all of them were athletically inclined. So I had aunts who played basketball. I had, my dad ran track, my uncles ran track. So um, they had to wear something, and that's where it all came from. And then my aunt was really huge on just being clean. You know what I'm saying? As far as being clean, as far as the sneakers being clean. And then as I got older, elementary school, junior high school, being where I was from in the inner city, man, the hustler showed you what was what. And just wow at just some of the footwear these guys would have on. And it was just mesmerizing to just see, okay, I got my pro rings on, but what is that? And then when you correlate that with Nike killing the game, Reebok killing the game at that time as far as the advertising of things, so you get to actually see the incredible marketing campaigns behind some of these shoes with the athletes. That's where it all came from. So believe it or not, I'm from a great era because even to this day, the stuff from that era between the 80s and the 90s is still being retroed now. People still talk about it now. People still YouTube those videos now. So I was a part of a critical and historical era with sneaker culture and the culture in general. So I'm a product of that. So it's simple as that, man. It's being where I'm from. And if I was from Cali in the 70s, I would probably be on Vans and Pumas or something different, you know what I mean? But being from DC, man, it was all about not necessarily just Nike at that time, but once Jordan came through, once Dominique came through, once Shawn Kemp came through, once Shaq came through, once Penny came through, and then the design of these sneakers were just like works of art. Even now, if you look at the Penny 1, you look at the Jordan 11, if you look at the SC Trainer, the original ones, those were actually works of art. It was more than just putting on a shoe for you to go to the gym in or go play basketball, go play tennis, man. So that's where my foundation came from, was when shoes became art and people started to wear them like art. So the whole Hugo Boss with the crease jeans and then with your shoes being fresh and all of that, that's just a product of DC. So no matter where you was from, whether you were going to the carry out or going to the club or going to school, people were clean and fresh. So it didn't matter if you had on Nikes or Etonics or British Nikes or Filas or Adidas, like whatever, as long as you were fresh and clean, you were good. And a lot of us there had, I won't say we were poor, but I will say that it was very limited funds at that time. So the whole rule was whatever you wore on Friday, you didn't wear it on Monday. As long as you didn't do that, you were fine. A lot of us just had 6 shirts, 4 jeans, one pair of shoes, and we made it work. So that was the whole rule. Whatever you wore on Friday to school, or wore Friday going out, or whatever, don't wear it on Monday. That was the only rule in the hood. After that, man, it was fair game. As long as everything was clean, you were good to go.
Yeah, I mean it's nice. Like you got that certain like way of rotating like your gear because like you said like nobody had like nobody was working during that time, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like when we were kids, we would save up our lunch money, or like when it's like almost back to school, we get that one shoe where like we ask our parents like, can I get this shoe? This will be my everyday shoe kind of thing. So from kind of like you feel like you have that one shoe that you can wear to school, and then maybe like towards like a birthday or Christmas, or like you do something well in like school, like a reward, you get
There
those
you go.
added bonus shoes, right? So we kind
There
of
you
like
go.
stacked up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice. It's really nice just looking back, like what got it. So like, what was your first? Can you recall like what was your first pair of sneakers that you bought for yourself, or what the sneakers that was given to you?
Wow. I can tell you now. I guess there's 4 different occasions I could think of.
Okay.
Um, 1987 was my first day in first grade. My parents unfortunately divorced, so I lived in Virginia Beach for a couple of years. As my dad was military, so he was stationed in Norfolk, and then I had to move back to DC because that's where all my family was from. My dad was still, going overseas and so forth. So my parents divorced, I moved back to DC, and it was my kindergarten year, and unfortunately the school was overcrowded for kindergarten. So I had to go to another school that was outside of my neighborhood for a couple months because I moved like to DC, like it was like in March or something like crazy like that. So I don't recall too much about that time, but I do recall when I was finally able to go to my neighborhood school in first grade. We went to PG Plaza, which is now the Mall of Prince George at the time, but now it's called that. And the Air Max 1 87 was my first day of school shoe, if you want, going into first grade. And that red and that gray, um, I can tell you, I thought I was walking on air, literally. And back in DC in that time, man, even if it was just the first 2 or 3 days, those first 2 or 3 days of school were critical for your self-esteem and so forth, because everyone was fresh those first 2 or 3 days, even that first full week of school, what you wearing the first day of school. And I remember, man, those Air Max 87s. I saw the shoe in Foot Locker. Foot Locker looked like a Foot Locker, literally looked like a locker, and it had the circle of shoes in the middle of the aisle, and it had the basketball court with the score on the register.
What?
Like it was old school like that, man. I remember it was right beside Woolworth, and yeah, man. So Air Max 87 was my first day of school shoe, first grade, and then I remember second grade. I don't remember that much. I remember third grade. The Air Max 90, the original white, black, and royal, or light blue, if you will, was my first day shoe. So my mom was very consistent on making sure I was fresh the first day of school, and that's going to PG Plaza for me to get my shoe. So those were 2 monumental moments as far as with me and with Nike, because I was a fan of a whole lot of brands. Because again, where I was from, as long as it was clean and it was nice, people weren't on, well, we just wearing this brand only. But yeah, those are the 2 shoes, as far as me being a kid, that really cemented something in me that I didn't know was there. Um, and the shoe that really did it was the Air Jordan 6. And I was not a Jordan fan at all growing up. I was a Washington Bullets fan, of course, and we were sorry as hell in the Capitol Center. So
Facts.
I became a Knicks fan because I knew the Knicks had an opportunity, possibly, especially when Pat Riley got there, to finally knock Mike and the Knicks off. So that's why I became a Knicks fan, in congruent to being with a Bullets fan. But that Air Jordan 6 was undeniable. That was the first time I saw a shoe, that black and that infrared with those 2 holes in the tongue. And I could tell you till this day, my mouth dropped. And of course, I couldn't afford the doggone shoe, but you see it on everybody's feet. You see it on Chi Ali's album cover, and I was a huge Chi Ali fan at the time, and I'm just like, this dude wearing this Buffalo State, sweater with the Jordan 6s, and the tongue was so long, he had to cuff this jeans in so that you could tell that. I was like, oh my, like, what's going on right now? And I never forget, this is so old school, but during my 6th grade graduation, we had a 6th grade graduation going from elementary school to junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
We went on a trip to Atlanta, the whole entire class, parents, teachers, chaperones. It was like the whole neighborhood almost went to a trip to Atlanta. And you're talking about city kids never gone to where, not much far outside of Prince George's Plaza or Silver Spring, and that was it. And I came back, and my uncle was like, yo, the sevens are out. And he just gave me a sixes. And it's ironic because at that time, during that trip was the summertime, and the Lakers were actually playing the Bulls in that series. When I came back, it was the last game of that series. I knew they were going to win that series, and he gave me those shoes the day after, and they were used. They were probably, I would say, 2 sizes bigger if I had to say, because he was probably a 10 and a half, and I was probably 8 at the time. But I'm talking about if I put socks in the top of them shoes and wore them joints, and that was it. So that Jordan 6 infrared is everything to me. As far as the shoe I paid for my own funds, I can tell you, freshman year, East Bay catalog, freshman year of VCU, the white and black 13 went on sale for $99.99. And I made that phone call, and they still had my size, and they were delivered 2 days later for $99.99 shipped. It wasn't, the lady forgot to even charge me tax. So that was the first year I remember vividly, my freshman year with my funds. Of course, I got stuff here and there. And I can tell you also, I never forget my summer of my freshman year at VCU, going into my sophomore year, just walked in the Foot Locker, and they had the all black Air Force Pods and Max Duncans for like $39.99. They had one shoe, I guess, in the back someone was holding or something, but they put it on display, and it charged for $39.99. And I remember that summer of '99 wearing those with my racing jacket, I guess. Who was the racing car guy who had the DuPont jacket? And that was my favorite driver, so forgive me because I'm kind of nervous.
Jeff Gordon.
Yes, I had my Jeff Gordon jacket and those foam pods, and that was it, man. But the Jordan 6 is the shoe for me that let me know that this is about not only athletically, but the best player in the world who I can't stand has these shoes on, but they were a piece of art until this day, that Jordan 6 infrared. So going back into the history of things, I can tell you, my wife would tell you too, when the pictures dropped on Nike Park and then on Niketalk as far as that Air Jordan 6 with the sample, I really couldn't sleep. So when the release date finally came out of August 23rd of 2000, remember like yesterday, that entire month of March, I probably got maybe an hour sleep a night anticipating that shoe. And I was working at Finish Line and Foot Locker simultaneously. Don't ask me how, but I got that done at 2 different malls. And 8:23 came, 6 o'clock in the morning. I can tell you, till this day, getting that shoe with Jordan's face on the box in silver and opening that shoe and getting that smell, and that Air Jordan 6 still does it for me till this day. So with this last retro that came out, I thought it had its issues, but at the same time, 2000s break down on you now. The suede would crack and bleed and just fall apart. So having the opportunity to get that shoe again last February, again, that Jordan 6, it's everything to me, as far as, again, just like, wow, like a player I can't stand because he's so good, but something about this shoe, and it's always stayed with me to this day. So the Air Jordan 6 infrared is everything to me. But the 2 Air Maxes, those were the shoes that were implanted with me from my mom without me even knowing how important it was. And when I think about those shoes, I think about just how fortunate I was, how fortunate all the other kids were too, because I was in a neighborhood in which people would chip in and make sure people were fresh the first day of school. Because I'm telling you, man, that first day of school in a hood, it could make you or break you, man. I didn't realize how much that was important, not only our self-esteem, but our development, because people that weren't fresh that first day of school, man, they had to deal with just damage of feeling sad and feeling, like they weren't worthy and all kinds of things that were associated with material stuff that we didn't know no better at the time. But man, I thank my mom for those Air Max 1 and that Air Max 90, man. But the Jordan 6, man, that's the one.
Shout out to mom. Mom made it happen for you, and family members too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how, because the minimum wage was like $4.50. I don't see how she was able to get me, but she made it happen. And again, like you said, I didn't get a new pair of shoes again until probably Easter or not even Christmas. So I made sure, even now, all of us are doing well as far as salary and so forth, but I'm still toothbrush and spray or whatever, because that's my foundation of whatever you got, you make sure you took care of it until it literally fell apart. So, because you wouldn't get anything else until the following year.
Right.
So I mean, I know Push and said a few times in his raps as far as wearing something once and give him away. So I'm like, even if I made $1 million a day, I probably would never do that, because my foundation is, once you got something, you took care of it. So my
Yeah.
wife always gets on me about the accumulation stuff that I have, whether it's sweatsuits or shoes. I'm like, when I get something, I maintain it and I keep it. So it's just years and years. Like, I got something maybe 15, 20 years old now that I still wear or still have, because I still take care of it. So it comes from me, I guess I won't say having that fear, but that foundation of saying, hey, once you got something, you worked hard for it and you maintain it. And that's what it's always been with me. So definitely.
Yeah, that's great that you have a lot of history with shoes, and how shoes were sentimental to you, and it brought you back to your childhood. Especially, it connected with your mom, your family members, friends, school, and and then eventually, like, you hated Jordan, which I didn't know, and I didn't know you were a Knicks fan. Um, yeah, it's great that that Jordan shoe just intertwined everything, like the history of the shoe, and then the fact that you worked two shoe stores during that time, and find the day that you got the shoe. I even remember there was so when we were all active on Niketalk on the DMV thread. I think there was like a story, not maybe like a thread about your favorite shoes. You typed, you were very passionate. I remember you typed something about your Jordan 6s, and that God willing, something he passed away, that you want to get buried in them, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So I still remember that. So shout
And
out,
that's
the
that's
sixes.
still that's still true till to this day. Find a pair of six, please, and let me corrode in that six, please. Definitely.
All right. So yeah, that's a nice segue. So Niketalk is as people don't know about Niketalk, Niketalk is one of the biggest shoe forums, in my opinion, in the world. Next, much larger than Soul Collector or whatever shoe site that you can think of. Um, we've all been members like a long time, since Nike Park days, and we know that you're one of the original members of Niketalk since 1999. If you want to explain like how impacted you as a person, and what opportunities it presented for you.
Definitely, no question. I can tell you, this is pre-social media days, so Nike Talk was basically our social media at the end of the day. Um, Nike Talk gave me opportunity to be amongst my peers, who at that time we all were seen or viewed as freaks or weirdos, because of course we're in a nation in which you can't be barefooted when you go outside. So unlike collecting sports cards or collecting coins, you gotta wear shoes. You have to wear shoes in order to go to church, to go to work, so forth. So a lot of people thought we took it way overboard, and I had thousands of people who were just like me. And at that time, it was kind of rare, because you got to think this was even before a lot of things we have now that are free. So outside of getting snail mail letters or having a high phone bill, you weren't able to really connect with people of a like mind. So Nike Talk became that spot in which the evolution of technology really started to kick off, in which information, your thoughts, your opinions, and just the influence that we had. A lot of things went on that Nike won't admit to this day, because of Nike Talk and its influence. So a lot of the sites that you people that are listening to are familiar with, or they frequent with, saying no names, trust me, they got their DNA from Nike Talk somehow, some way. Nike Talk was the first. So if you look at hip hop and you want to talk about um, Def Jam, for example, so everyone for the most part, no matter what coast you're from, and so forth. When Rick Rubin and when um, Russell Simmons came in the game, things kind of changed for everybody, everywhere, for the rest of the history of hip hop. Think of Nike Talk in that way, in which Nelson and Method Man, I believe his real name is Alex, I'm not sure because he's very, very discreet, but I would say Method Man and Nelson, the co-founders of Nike Talk, they brought this thing in which they gave everyone an avenue, an opportunity to be creative and explore. So any site you go to now that maybe buy, sell, trade, or maybe a message board, or may share information, all that came from the infancy of Nike Talk. So given a lot of people have stolen Nelson's style, stolen Method Man's style, Method Man, again, being the screen name of one of the co-founders, if anyone's confused. It's unfortunate because if we had a Hall of Fame or any kind of award show where they should get some kind of Lifetime Achievement Award, them two should get it, because I'm telling you, a lot of sites. Again, I would just say that Nelson is the grandfather of this thing, and I didn't realize it would spread out as much as it has. But the evolution of the internet with now Instagram and so forth, Niketalk started, or was a part, or was the infrastructure of all of this. So it reminds me of a quote one point with Tupac, and even Kendrick even had it in his Butterfly album when Tupac said, you know, I may not be the person that sparks the person that's going to change this world. But my voice, if I'm not the person going to spark the world, I'm going to be the voice, or I'm going to be the reason why. I'm going to be the foundation of someone that's going to spark the world. And that's how I see Niketalk overall. So as far as the camaraderie, the fellowship, the connections, you talk about a time in which it wasn't about greed. It wasn't about bulk buying. It was about everyone kind of helping each other out. Yes, we still had our issues. We still had our personalities. We still had our frauds here and there. But the frauds, literally, we would see who lived where, and people would knock on people's doors like, yo, you took my man's money. And not on some like gangster, we're going to kill you thing, but yo, you took my man's money. 5 of us are out here. You want us to get the cops. Just do what's right, man. You're going to mess the community. Like, that's how things kind of went. And that sounds so old school now, but that's what Niketalk did. So when it first opened in 1999, I was skeptical because I was a Nike Park fan. People know who Nike Park was. Nike Park was another message board, but because of its lack of control and its lack of having authoritative figures that will have rules and regulations, it just got overwhelmed with porn and a whole bunch of foolishness. So it kind of went down. So I was skeptical about Niketalk because I wasn't sure if they had a hidden agenda, what was going on. So I didn't actually join officially until October the 11th, I believe, but 13th of 2000. So when it first opened up in December of 99, I kind of stayed around in the wings, just browsed it for a while to make sure, because I was so hurt and a little bit damage was done. And I was a little bit kind of, I would say defensive, if you will, with what happened with Nike Park. So I thought they had something really good going, and a couple of fools kind of just messed things up with viruses and all kind of stuff that was going on back then, that people were being very intentional and malicious about, just being hateful. So I joined 2000 in Niketalk, and from that point, I wanted to make sure I had an identity. And I was very strategic about my screen name, about what I did, about what I said. I was a fool back then for a reason. It was almost like if you was a part of WWE and you had the opportunity to be your own character and write your own storyline. That's how I kind of viewed Niketalk and how I viewed things. So I was all about building a community, all about being a leader, because I didn't have the opportunity. I always wanted to, but I never had the opportunity where I was from my neighborhood, man. There was always so much drama in my neighborhood. So I wanted to make sure things were drama to a certain extent, but always in a spot in which it was positive, it was love. People, would help people out. Information was disseminated, and that's what it was. So I was with the people that were of a like mind, and we all teamed up, got together. The release came out. If I had a discount, it was yours. Like, it was really a community. It was almost like, if you will, the best church in the world. But sneakers was our God. If you want to say that, I ain't saying that, but that's exactly what it was.
That's a good analogy.
Man, you talking about the fellowship and the communion and the meetings, everything, man, was so God and church, like, man, you would not believe back in the day. But that's what Niketalk was. And although with the evolution of things, it's kind of gone down a little bit because so many people have stolen their style and so forth and have gone. And with the new generations, they haven't. I was a part of the last generation, I think you and I, Dan, in which we were forced to know what the foundation was. So you may be a Dom Kennedy fan, but you had an uncle or older cousin like, yo, you gotta go listen to Tribe. You gotta go listen to Run DMC. You gotta go listen to DJ Quickly. You had to be familiar with your history. Now, I think even with the evolution of the internet and people have access to everything now, they don't want to research anything. So I never got that, in which you got Google, you got Wikipedia, you got all these sites that you could be an expert on anything in that, basically in a week, and people don't want to do it. I don't understand that. So that's what's going on now for a lot of the generation now. They just hop on one thing and they don't have a history, and the history is right there in front of them. And Niketalk is that history. So I tell everyone, if you have any chance to kind of join the site or kind of peep the site, it looks old school now. I think Nelson do that intentionally to make sure it keeps its roots. But Niketalk was that place that spiraled what you enjoy now in a sneaker community, whether it's in a store, online, face to face. Niketalk started all of that in some way, shape, or form. It all spiraled through Niketalk.
Yep, I agree. Especially when they did like the the regional forums when they separated, because remember it was just one general forum, right, where like all these summits were all being planned out, and then when Nelson and Method Man, they were able to sort it out. You know what? Let's just do it geographically. We got the southeast, northwest, DMV, SoCal, NorCal. I think it was great. They even had like Asia, Philippines, you know what I mean, so on and so forth. Um, and that's great. And then uh, even like the like the slang, wallet breakers, tap tap pull pull,
Mm-hmm.
those type of things, like and those emojis, what I
DS,
mean?
unds, you know what
Oh,
I mean? Who
Diaz,
knows
on
who
Diaz,
DS?
yeah.
All that came from us. I mean, honestly, it did. So, yeah.
Wallet
Um,
breaker. People don't know what wallet breaker means. That you breaking necks.
period. And you broke your wallet as well,
Broke your
trying to
wallet
break
too. You
necks.
paid a penny, man. I had to get them. It's a wallet breaker.
And you mentioned something about the Philippines as well, and I wanted to say that Niketalk was instrumental in information being international. So between
Yeah.
Niketalk and eBay, you started to get solid information and consistency on releases and things that were sent overseas that didn't come to the States, and having the opportunity to uh, communicate with and befriend folks overseas who had no harm saying, hey, that shoe been sitting over there for 6 months, I'll walk over there and get it right now as long
Yep.
as we want to pay the shipping for it. So
Yep.
that was one of my things that really was eye opener too, of how many things, particularly with runners, that will go overseas and sit.
Mhm.
And then again, it wasn't that much fraud, and people were just all about helping. So just having friends in Japan and in Philippines and in Germany, and it was just insane stuff that came through my college dorms during that times from overseas. So thanks to Niketalk for that as well.
It's great, man. Yeah, like I said, it's great that we continue to like network. To this day, like it's all about networking and
Mm-hmm.
who because you won't get far with it. So another question that relates to Nike Talk. What's your fondest memories of like the infamous like Nike Talk summits? And those basketball summits were one of the best meetings, like in my opinion. And you were one of the co-founders or originators that made it happen. So if you want to just talk more about it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, one thing I learned from Nelson and from Method Man was that um, no matter what group you in, I hate to say someone has to take the lead, but someone has to have the skills in order to um, be a leader in the fact of organization, as far as being timely, as far as knowing how to get people together and how to listen to other people and get the input in. And that's the reason why you have um, great managers out here and you have bad supervisors. And I always wanted to be a good manager, as far as once they actually, as you said, made the site a little bit more decentralized, if you will, centralized or decentralized with the regional forms. And I thought that for some reason, I was kind of given the torch, given how I was, how vocal I was, and how active I was on the site, to kind of take that on. So as far as putting up a flyer and putting the times and the dates and getting everyone's input on a place, seemed like I was a person that people were following, listen to, because they knew that I was a person that kind of kept my word and I wasn't about a whole bunch of BS. And I just kind of developed. That wasn't something that I was planning to have, but I was like, forget it. I mean, whatever. It's for my people, and that's basically what it came down to. So. With us getting together as far as with meetups or playing basketball or all that kind of thing, man. Someone had to take the reins, because you already know if you have 50 or 60 people giving their opinions and no one is saying, okay, fine, here's the gavel, bang the gavel, this is what we're going to do because of the votes or because of this, what I hear people saying. You got to have someone to organize all of that, or it'll just be chaos, throughout. So I took pride in doing it, because that's a skill that I still have to this day, man. I realized how anal retentive, how analytical I am and was back then. But again, Niketalk developed those skills, or at least let me know what my purpose or what my skill set was. A lot of people aren't like that, but they're really good at doing other things. Me being anal retentive and being timely and being organized, that's a strength of mine. And Niketalk gave me the opportunity to be me, and also benefit from it, and also have other folks benefit from it, from us just collaborating. So that's all it was, man, which is hearing the voice of everyone, us posting every 2 minutes or every 2 seconds about what was going on, about what people wanted to do. Pick a time, pick a place, we'll be there. And I'll tell you, man, our first couple of meetups, I was just shocked, because I started to realize, okay, fine, now you have an influence. You have to be very strategic, very careful, um, and very cognizant of your influence. And that was with Niketalk as well. So before I became a husband or before I became, a dad, Niketalk kind of prepped me to say that, hey, you have a responsibility and you need to be very careful about your responsibility as far as to your people. So again, Niketalk developed those skills I didn't know that I was even developing. And that was, I'm thankful for that as well. So that's all that was, man, was just giving that torch and then I had a torch and being careful and consistent with it and being caring about it. So that's all it was, man. It's just, got to bring everybody together.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, those are fun. I remember the first time I met you. I think it was Arundel Mills. I think maybe that was the first summit that you
Mm-hmm.
coordinated. I remember it was like it was my friend Realm, who's my co-host, and his friend. We actually went up there, and they knew what Niketalk was. So I was telling them, yeah, like let's just check it out. This is like, these shoe, sneaker collectors, and they're from the area. It's kind of like a get to know each other. So I remember we must have met at the food court, that big food
Yeah.
court at Arundel Mills, and
Mm-hmm.
then I already knew, like you can just tell, like who you were, and we knew each other. Like, are you Isa Hazel, or are you Rock's Finest, or My T Sharp? You know what I mean? Like, we kind of, all
It's,
right. So I think you put the screen name with the face. Oh, that's cool. So this is who you are, kind of thing.
and I will never forget what I wore. That day, I wore the game worn upper deck um, blue alternative autographed Penny Hardaway authentic game worn jersey, even with the sticker with the authenticity sticker on the one on the back with this autograph. And I wore the original foam posit ones. I never forget I wore that. And the thing is, people probably think it's kind of crazy now. But think going into a mall and then you see it between 40 to 60 dudes, fresh to death, all together, like just walking around in an outlet mall, and you like, okay, who are those dudes? What are they doing? So everyone's looking
Yeah.
at us like, are they a group or are they
They're not
like,
they're not celebrities.
yeah, they're not a gang because they don't look like they're about to start any trouble, but they're dressed like, what's going on? So everyone was looking at us like we were crazy, but we was like, yeah, that was a fun day. But getting the looks that we were getting, everyone was kind of like, okay, so who are they? Like, are they like, yeah, who are they? And that's what I remember the most about the day. But I remember exactly what I wore. Like I said, I'll go through my hard drives and a couple of my old memory cards around here, and I would definitely see the pit pictures. I still have the pit pictures of that day and a lot of our summits, man. And you got to think, gosh, what year was that? That was 2003. So I never forget because I bought that. I bought my white Corolla. I bought my very first car. It was a white Corolla, 2003. It was a 5-speed, and that was the first road trip that it had, going from Richmond to VCU to going to Arundel Mills. So it had 50 miles on it. So I was so hyped. I had my new car. I had my fresh foam pods on. I had my penny jersey that was like as long went down to my knees at that time, but it was a game on, so it ain't matter. And man, you talking about, I remember my playlist because back then, it wasn't, the iPods were just starting to come about. But as far as in your cars, you had to have, the CD change. So I had my top 6 CDs in the CD changer
I
and
remember
going,
that.
yeah. So just going down 95 and hitting 295, man, you talking about, I can tell you the soundtrack for that day, man. It was a lovely day. We had I had a sunroof. I always wanted to car with I had a sunroof, and it was summertime, but it was such a nice day, which the windows were down. I'll never forget, the windows were down, sunroof was open, so we were basically cruising down 95 to 295 coming that summit, and it was just a wonderful day. From top to bottom, from beginning to end, it was a great day.
Yeah, I remember I remember what I wore too. It was a Miami. That was during the Jersey era. So I
Mm-hmm.
wore a Miami Heat authentic home Karan Butler jersey, and then I wore my 2001 like black cement threes.
Yeah, Karan was your man. I never forget that.
You
Karan
remember
Butler
that?
was your dude.
Yep.
And then when he came to the Wizards, I was like, oh boy, it's a done deal now. Because Karan was your man since his rookie
Yeah,
year when
yeah.
he was with Miami,
Yep.
definitely.
Yep.
Because you
He
liked
still
him,
does.
you liked him in Connecticut. That's how I knew you was a
Yeah,
Karan
yeah,
Butler fan in
UConn. Yeah, I
Connecticut.
remember.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
And then yeah, like you remember the guy too that wore, I forgot his name. He wore those mismatched like Jordan 4s.
Boys, yep. I still got the picture. Yeah. Was
Forgot
that
his name.
gosh, don't worry. Hey my gosh, he's gonna kill me. that I think that was Pat, because Pat hit me up a couple of
I think
months
that's
ago.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Pat. Yeah, because Pat is still fresh. Pat is so yeah. He had on the left foot was a 1999 cement 4, and on the right foot it was the white cement 4 a
Yeah.
99. Both of them dead stocks. He wore mismatched shoes, dead stock. One black 4, one white 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He was
that
like,
was
yeah, that was like when I saw him in the mall, like, what? Like, are you allowed, are you allowed to wear that? Like, that was never, that was not called, that was unheard of back then.
yeah, that's Pat all the way, man. And I was like, dude, I'm like, you really going to unds your 99s in this fashion? Like, yeah. So like, you want to wear
With the
opposite
Nike tags
shoes.
on. With the Nike
Yeah,
tags on.
exactly. Yep. Sure
Yeah.
did.
And you remember Topside Lover too, right? He rolled out there
Mm,
like super late. It was
super.
a funny dude, man. Such a funny
Yeah.
dude.
Tommy had on, I never forget, the Saints jersey with the Dion's, because he had a gold Saturn at the time, and
Yep.
he had the jersey to match the car, and it was so, and he had a do rag on. Tom with a do rag on. Now him and I both dying to get our hair back, but I never forget. Yeah, it was some interesting outfits that were legendary at that time. That when our kids turn 18, I'm going to send a couple of pictures, let them know, hey, this is your dad back in 2003, so you can see what our style was
Wow.
back then.
And you
Definitely.
remember Will, aka ROC's finest, he was wearing
Mm-hmm.
the what did he wear? He wore a jersey and then those Air Dirties.
Jerseys. Yep, I remember those Air Dirties. Yep, because those were going for, at that time, an astronomical amount, about 500. If you were lucky, they were $500. I never forget. I was like, that's the first time I saw those live, and that was when Nelly was just on top of the
Yep.
world. So that Barkley shoe, at that time, was probably top 5 as far as hype or demand at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that red, white, and blue Barkley was out of this world, definitely.
Yeah, man, that was good memories, man. Shout out to Tommy too. He's
Yeah,
I know he's doing well out there in New York with his family.
definitely.
Um, so yeah, like I said, Niketalk is a big staple in everybody's past. And to this day, I still log on.
Yeah,
Just to look cool.
same here, but
It's
that,
not the same
especially,
anymore, but just to look.
yeah. I mean, times change, people change, and you got to think once people keep taking elements of your DNA and going elsewhere. You have generations that will grow up not knowing the foundation, so they tag onto those things, thinking those were the originals, those were the first. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we're in a generation, an era now, which no one likes to give homage to where they got their stuff from. They just steal it and take it as it's theirs and let it just grow from there. And that's what's gone on the past, I'll say, 10 years. So that's what's gone on. So now Niketalk is starting to be a little bit strategic more as far as getting that back. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get it back the way they should have. Though they're probably a few years late in making those demands. But Nelson and Method Man, they're givers first, and they got and their hearts are always in the right place. So by the time they realize that there are people really stealing from them, if you will, literally going into their household, taking their couch out, taking the TV out, it was like a couple years almost too late. You know what I mean? So, but they're doing some strategic things now to make sure that people know who they are, what they are, what they're responsible for. Definitely.
That's great. So also, if you want to maybe also touch in, I know that met Nelson a couple years ago in Vegas, along with some Niketalk
Definitely.
members. So I want to maybe touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, as I've gotten older, um, I've always realized that I got a grandfather out of this thing, and I had the opportunity to do something that a lot of people have not been able to do in their lives, and that's basically meet the godfather of whatever hobby or whatever you're into. So, if you love hip hop, no matter what coast you're from, it would be an honor to meet someone like a Dr. Dre or a Russell Simmons or a Rick Rubin, and be able to just sit down with them and have a conversation with them about anything you want to. And I made a point to make sure I took my credit card and booked whatever I had to book to go to Vegas, because Nelson was going to be there, and having the opportunity to tell someone eye to eye, man to man, face to face, thank you, because you are a part of my fabric and a part of my foundation of everything in my life, post high school. That was important to me, and I had the opportunity to do that. And with everything going on now in the world with COVID and so forth, you never know what will happen to people when you are going to have the opportunity. So I was very tactful, intentional, and strategic on making sure I had the opportunity to meet the godfather of all of this directly and just say thank you. And that was my whole point, man. So again, I can die in peace now knowing I had the opportunity to do that. And that's what that really was all about. Meeting everyone else and the camaraderie. It was basically old school. We basically hopped in everybody's cars and everyone treated each other. They knew each other for 10, 15, 20 years. Went to outlets, man. We ate, man. We talked about good old times and so forth. But my intention was to make sure that the Godfather was going to be there. I need to go meet the Godfather and just say thank you. And that was my whole point. And I was able to do that.
I hope I get to meet the Godfather too. I know that they're gonna do another summit, but hopefully down the road,
Definitely.
I like to attend that. So another good question to ask Kevin. You're the type of person that does the work to find the good shoe deals in the area, outside the area. So that's pretty much been your forte. I see you posted on your social media.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go into detail on what your process is and the importance of finding a good deal?
Definitely, man. I will say foundationally, the game is to be sold, not to be told. So I'm not going to tell all my quote unquote secrets. I could tell you that being in this game, I would say officially since 1991, it's now 2020. You can add those years up. Um, you learn to develop a whole lot of skills. So one thing that I lacked as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, and you got a lot of old Niketalk posts that can attest to this. I lacked patience. A lot of times I lacked being humbled, and a lot of times I lacked being as financially savvy as I possibly could be. And this game, how it evolved and how it exploded so quickly, I had to improve in those areas in order to maximize the benefits of this hobby. And that's not only in its hobby, but in my life as well. So a lot of things with me are parallels. A lot of people may have different personalities and be like, look, I'm this way at church, I'm this way at work, I'm this way at home, I'm this way with my parents. Like, no, how I am is how I'm going to be, because you got to be your true self in everything. And one thing that I've been able to do over the years is realize or kind of see the strategy of stores, see what comes out, be more cognizant as far as research and knowing when things are coming out. Because of my history of the game and my experience in the game, having the discernment, if you will, to know, okay, this is a shoe that if they release it, it's going to sit for a while. So maybe I could be patient instead of me paying X price, which is going to sit in my closet for a year and a half anyway. Just wait till it hits the outlet or wait until it hits the box. So just being very strategic with that, and all that comes with experience. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that it's patience, it's being humble, it's a willingness to just take an L sometimes, because usually take an L, a W will come back around. But the key thing is definitely patience, experience, being humble, and I would say not making the same mistake twice. And once you have the history and you have the experience, you should grow from that. A lot of people don't, unfortunately, but I'm one of the people that I rarely make the same mistake twice. So I'm all about sharpening myself and being better. So me being an expert at how to go about things and being, I've been called a shoe weatherman before. A lot of people call me that. That's from the experience, from trial and error over the years. So over time, man, I just grandfathered myself into knowing how to go about things. And once you want something, you already know. In the world we live in, the people that we are, you're always going to have unlimited wants with limited resources. I don't care if you are, a trillionaire. At some point, your money's going to run out. So how smart can you be to make sure you maximize your wants, to make sure you are still within your means or your budget or what have you? And that's what it's all about, man. So you'll never catch me having an impulse buy. Thankfully, with the game that we're in, it's easy to get rid of stuff. So unlike other hobbies where you buy something at yours and you may get 20% of what you paid, with us, man, we could wear something and still get 80, 90% of what we paid, because most things that we buy appreciate over time, even if used. So we're in a hobby that's a lot different than a whole lot of other hobbies, man. But with me, it's all about being strategic, knowing what you want, being intentional about what you want, but being realistic with yourself, knowing your budget, being patient, and putting in the work, as you said, man. Putting in the work is just being kind-hearted to people, not having any kind of interior motives, knowing where to go, knowing how to actually approach people and so forth. And the key thing with me, Dan, is consistency. A lot of people don't think long term, so they think shoe for shoe and so forth. The one thing that I can say has been my strength is my consistency and how I treat folks and how I've gone about things. So I always tell my dudes that I mentor, you can't tell me you're in a hobby for 4, 5, 6, 7 years and you still got to wait in the line, or you still, if you have to wait in the line, I understand, but people should know your face and they should know your character and know that's a good thing. A lot of these guys that have been in this game for 10, 15, 17 years and still got to wait in the line and still got to deal with a whole bunch of drama. You have to ask what they have done or what they haven't done from a character standpoint, because there's no way I'm gonna be in anything and not improve, whether it's my marriage, whether it's fatherhood, whether it's my job. You get in something for so long, and usually if you're in this game, you're in this game for life. You got to figure out a way to improve your character or your skills or you know what I'm saying, or yourself as a man or woman to maximize what you want in this game. And the thing is with me is once you get to that point, you realize you don't really want to need that much. So things come to me and given to me and so forth. And I usually give that stuff away. So with me, it's all about being a giver, being patient, but putting in the work. So a lot of times people will be on, these cell phones and get on social media, and then they're not out there in the real world. And from what you and RJ do, you go out in the real world and you're like, yo, what the internet is saying isn't necessarily true, because I'm sitting there standing beside the shoe that's $59.99. People online saying you can't get it for less than $130. So still going out there and realizing that there's a world out there outside of the internet that may not be. I'll say the internet is not as truthful as it can be at times.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the keys, man. And after a while, once you realize that this game is expensive, now with the amount of releases, I really feel bad for anybody who's a teenager trying to get in this game and trying to maintain. It can be daunting. It could be stressful. It can be depressing trying to keep up with this thing. So you got to know what your limits are, be happy with your limits, and know how to kind of just go about things. As far as if you have to buy, sell, trade, that's cool. I can tell you that I don't buy or sell or trade to, pay my mortgage or to pay my phone bill, man. It goes back into the game, whether I'm helping someone else or donating something else or buying something myself. Everything with me is going back into the game. So to me, this is always a hobby. So then you got your bulk buyers who basically their salary, if you will, is based off of sneakers. That's not me. So to me, if you're in the game, you're going to buy, sell, trade, because whatever shoe you get, you can buy it, you can sell it, you can trade it. But the whole bulk buyer thing is a whole nother avenue. So I think people could get confused over a reseller versus a bulk buyer. I think we're all resellers for the most part, because we all buy, sell, trade, because how you going to survive in this game and be refreshed and renewed if you don't? A lot of your trash, someone else's treasure, why not sell it to get what you want? And that's the cycle of the game. So with me, man, it's patience, going out there doing your work, but knowing people and people knowing you and having good character has got me farther along than anything. So that's the key thing that I'll tell folks, definitely.
Man, that's those are some gems that you drop. And I know what RJ would say, like he in our past podcast when talking about shoes, there was a point where where he wanted the shoe so bad that it really bothered him like the whole day, and ruin his mood, and over time, like now it's like if I don't get it, I don't get it. I think that we can, I guess we know that we've experienced that in some point in our lives where like it bothered us so much that we can't get our size, or it's sold
Mm-hmm.
out, or can't get it anywhere. But over time, it's a shoe. There'll be a time and place for it, and you never say never say never. It'll come back to you.
That's
And
wisdom,
yeah,
definitely.
and like it's funny, like we talk about this now, and then you tell us about that 20 years ago, 15 years ago. We'd had no patience, man.
At all.
We'd be so upset. Um, so yeah, thanks for that, for dropping those gems. And I have to tell you too, like I actually got just by like going, hanging out with you, I actually learned certain things about like being patient, about like waiting for the right time. That one time I went to Iverson Mall, when we had those vandals, right? Those Nike vandals for $29.99. I think it was at
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Jazz. It was on
Mm-hmm.
the far left. So you were like, you know what? You can take them. No hesitation. Like for real? Like you don't, like you're not gonna, like you can have them. Well, I'm not gonna be mad. You're not, just take them. And to me, that I was like, man, Kevin's he's A1, man.
Well,
So
well, since you're sharing that story, I'll share this story with folks. I'm not sure if you remember, but hopefully this will recall some things. You mentioned Tommy, and him and I both had our daughters within the same time frame. We wanted them to have a kind of a relationship. So when we had our daughters, we got up, and Tommy was living in Baltimore at the time.
mhm.
Our families got together, and our wives are very, they're cool as well. But I met you, and this was, my daughter will be 13 in October. So this was every bit of 12 years ago. So both our daughters were still in diapers. And you met me, it was either at Bowie Town Center or somewhere near Bowie Town Center,
I
where
remember.
you sold me the Carmine Sixes that came in that CDP pack.
Yep.
And the only reason why I still don't have those is because I had an incident in which I spilled either hot sauce, like literally I had a whole plate of food fall on that shoe. So I want to thank you because you gave them to me, I think maybe 180 or something crazy like that, in which for the condition they were in and for the hype of that shoe, you really looked out for me because I really wanted that
Yeah.
shoe in that size.
I gave you the whole pack, bro. Like it was less in
Definitely.
detail.
Yeah,
Like
definitely. So I
yeah,
appreciate that. And until this day, if it wasn't for me spilling a whole plate of food, I would still have that shoe because um, yeah, that meant a whole lot to me, in
yeah,
which that was one of the key moments in my life in which I realized that you had to be a good receiver as well, because you would be like, no, and I remember I was pushing you like, dude, I could pay you. And you were like, no, like, so I had to learn that that was my very first experience in realizing that how would you feel if you were a giver and the person you're trying to give something to was acting the way you're acting. So you got to be a good receiver as well as a willing to giver as well. So thank you for that. I'll never forget that, man. Just going
oh
to
yeah,
Thomas. I say,
definitely,
hey,
man.
I got to meet Dan, man. We got to meet Dan in the morning, man. He got the shoes. Like, damn, like cool. And it's like you refuse to take a dime more, and I appreciated that, man. Seriously, so I'll never forget that.
Yeah, I remember. And your wife was in the passenger seat because you went out there, and then your wife was like, "Shoes again?" Like, yeah, like he got a good deal though. I said I didn't tax him. Like he got the 16 17s, no problem.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
yeah. Your wife was just like shaking her head, like I know, I
Another
know.
meetup.
Another meetup. So another cool question. I know you're a big fan of the original Nike basketball sneakers, and you're also a big, since you're from DC, born and raised, you're also a fan of the New Balance.
Mhm,
Uh, so those seems to be like hand in hand your top two favorites.
mhm.
Uh, what makes those shoes unique from like the rest, like from as far as like shoe collecting, and as far as like culture wise, with those two shoes that first thing come into mind?
Definitely. Well, you mentioned New Balance, and the key thing with New Balance is you talk to any rep from New Balance, they would tell you that the Washington, D.C. area was very particular as far as supporting them and supporting that brand. It's the only non-runner before the collabs and everything now, of course, that's kind of exploded. Before the collabs with all these rappers and Kanye wearing them and now everyone being a New Balance head all of a sudden. Before then, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area was well known for being a non-running market, but basically um, infusing a lot of money and funds into New Balance. And they didn't understand how, didn't understand why, but that's just the area. So if you're from the Washington, D.C. area, anything that's a 900 or above, that's gray. It's a part of your fabric. It's just the fashion statement, if you will, of repping where you're from. And that's where the New Balance came from. On top of New Balances, even till this day, the quality has not changed at all. So they have not changed as far as me thinking of a New Balance 20 years ago to even now. The quality is always top notch with their stuff. So that's where it is. Again, being a product of where you're from. With Nike basketball, particularly Nike basketball retro, again, it's all about just when I grew up and the, again, I'm not to repeat myself, but just the marketing campaigns that were at this time well known, historic, and um, culturally influential, if you will, culturally significant, if you will. And that's where all that comes from. So on top of the shoes being just greatly designed shoes, you talk about, Lil Penny, or you talk about even the LeBron commercial with him with, at the pool with the different LeBrons that was his uncle and the kid, or him with the him and Kobe with the with the dolls. And Nike did such an awesome thing with not only the shoes, but having the top athletes, but also knowing how to market and commercial them in a certain way. So it's certain historical commercials that flow with the shoe on top of the athlete being great, on top of the athlete performing in a Hall of Fame way and so forth. So that's it, man. And again, I'm not wearing anything that's not going to be clean and going to be fresh. So Nike just had the greatest designers in the world. So when you have the greatest designers in the world, the greatest athletes in the world, and also the greatest marketing campaigns that till this day are still being looked upon and studied in schools of journalism and marketing and advertising. You basically got, the triple threat right there historically. So Nike basketball kind of had that on lock. And at one point, people don't understand that Reebok, Avia, like at one point it was even across the board, and somebody had to take that reign. And when Nike took it, particularly with Bo Jackson and with Mike, they soared and they never looked back. So everyone else is kind of following in second place now, and that's just what happened historically. That's what it's been. But with Nike basketball, man, it just can't be denied because of the designs, even to this day, that's continue to get remade, and the colorways and so forth. The quality is what it is now. It's more nostalgia, but as far as with New Balance, definitely you can't go wrong. Once you get a pair, if you pay $180 for them, they're going to last you for 10 years. Even if you're running them, they're going to last you 10 years. So with New Balance, it's about being a part of the area, repping the area, because a lot of places I go, they're like, okay, he's wearing those. But again, now New Balance is now the thing now with celebrities and so forth. But that's it, man. It's just, again, being a product of where I'm from, being a product of where I was raised, and the era that I was in, man. But Nike basketball, they killed the game at the right time. And even now, people YouTube those commercials to talk about those commercials and everything. And that's what it is. So, yeah, all the way. Nike basketball and New Balance is just all that. That's DC all day. It's DC all day, definitely.
Yep. Especially when Kevin, if I want to share this, I know that you had your shoes recently restored by shout out to Illyry Ron. He did a great. I saw those shoes that how he restored them, and now I saw them on your feet. Like you had those obsidians that you had on, and then those
Mm-hmm.
charcoals. I was
And
like,
Ron now has two or more flight pods. So shout out to Ron, man. Like, it's again, um, it's all about the connection. So through Dan, through Niketalk, through someone I've known for almost 20 years, he just gave me his cosign. And with us, if we give you a reference, your reference is as good as it being that person. That's just old school. So once Dan hooked me up with Illyry, was like, yo, this is the guy you need to get with. His word was good, and that's been that. So again, finding someone like Ron, who is old school in his philosophies and in his approach and how he goes about things in his business, has been a blessing. So I don't mind shipping them shoes to California, take as long as he needs to, and give him his money and get him back, man, because again, he's keeping, as I say, my Humpty Dumpty's alive, definitely, because those shoes are well over 20 years old.
yeesh,
Thankfully, they don't have an air bubble, so you don't have to worry about that being a
right?
concern. So that's the reason why I'll keep sending myself to him to get restored or re-glued until the Lord sends me home, because that Flight Positive 1 and that silhouette is undeniably, I think, the greatest shoe ever made, particularly being where I'm from and so forth, man. That zipper
Yep,
and that shoe is everything to me. So, yeah, shout out to Ron, man, for restoring my carbon fibers, my, I guess, pearl and navy Flight Positive 1s, as well as the charcoal and gray Flight Positive 1s, and as you mentioned, the obsidian and white Flight Positive 1s, which were Foot Locker exclusive back in '99.
yep,
So thank you, Ron. I appreciate you, man, because
yeah,
you are keeping me alive and well and sane doing that. So I could wear those without them breaking down. So shout out to anyone who needs to have anything restored or any kind of tabs redone, or any kind of he does it all as far as customization of shoes. So please shout out to Illyry and definitely follow him. Illery.
yep. That's him.
Instagram. That's him all the way.
Yeah, he's good people. Yeah, like I said, when I told him, yeah, my friend has some flight pods, and he's had experience like restoring them. So I'm glad it all worked out for you. So kudos to that. And then for the record too, Kevin doesn't have the 2014 carbons, not that screen printed ones. It's the actual 99 carbon fiber, old school Nike box, like in the flesh.
And I paid a pretty penny for them. I bought two pair off of a collector. One guy, I think, was from Maryland. The other guy was from North Carolina. But I tell people you got to be strategic and you have to be real with yourself, but you have to be honest with yourself as well. So I'm like, okay, fine. If I'm going to pay $500 for a shoe, I have to skip the next two Jordan releases. And not just say a Jordan release because, hey, I'm not going to get them. I have to skip the next two Jordan releases that I really wanted. So I'm like, instead of paying 200 retail for two pair of shoes, I'm going to get this shoe now. And maybe things will work out later on where it'll be a restock or whatever. But if you're going to pay a certain amount of money for a shoe, make sure that you are realistic in saying, I'm going to skip literally these other releases that I really, really wanted. Because a lot of people would trick their mind to say, well, I skipped the past 5 releases. You know damn well you didn't want the past 5 releases anyway. So don't go there. Like I have my little, like, I would say a vision board of sneakers and being real with myself and my budget. But again, that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So you got to think at one point that shoe was seeing $1,000. So I waited until the demand went all the way down, and I saw people starting to try to get rid of them, and I'm like, how did 2 pair pop up within a month in my size when I've been looking for a shoe for over a year and a half? So again, you got to know the timing of when things are calling for you too, and realize that, hey, you probably got enough stuff that if you look at stuff that you probably have not worn in a while or you haven't prioritized, you probably can sell a few shoes to make up for what you want to. So that's another thing too, is just recycling the game, man. Your trash is somebody else's treasure. And you got to prioritize, say, hey, if I want this shoe, I like that shoe, but I love that shoe. So let me go ahead and get rid of these 4 or 5 likes to make sure I get this one love. So sometimes it's about quality, not quantity. So that's another gem. But a lot of guys just aren't satisfied. They got to have everything at all times. And that's not me. I had to grow out of that quickly in order to survive and be happy and be content in this game, man. It's like you mentioned with RJ, man. This game will stress you out. It will depress you because you got to think, again, it's no limit out here. Literally, it's no limit. Like the amount of releases and the amount of things that come out now, you have to be strategic and you have to be pointed to know, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to get. Because you can't get everything, man. You just can't. It's impossible now, man. You can't get everything. You just can't.
No. Especially if you get everything, you're quoted as a hype beast, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, like Kev been wearing SBs like $29.99. You know what I mean? Like, people don't know, man. Like,
Understood.
you know, that's another story for another day.
Understood.
We'll have to talk about that, you know, especially when RG comes back.
Definitely.
So another question to ask you. We know that you are a true DMV sports fan. And I'll just skip the basketball. You know, we're all about football right now. What's your thoughts about the whole Washington football team? I know that you addressed that in your social media, but I just want to hear it from you, like how you feel about everything and where things going to be.
It's an embarrassment. It's a tragedy. Um, you got to think, I was born in 1980 in Washington, D.C. So I grew up with Jack Kent Cooke, who was the owner of the Redskins when we won Super Bowls that we won, all 3 of them. I faintly remember Super Bowl 17, faintly, but I do recall vividly, like yesterday. I recall Doug Williams Super Bowl 22. I recall Mark Ripken in Super Bowl 26. I gambled on those games. I had $7 to my name, and I remember betting $7 that we were going to beat Buffalo. We were going to beat Denver in both of those games. So those games, and that's my childhood. Unfortunately, my daughter, even my younger brothers, I have a brother that's 20 and another brother that's 22. They just know us as, the Deadskins is what they call us. They don't have that foundation because of Snyder, and although we've been one of the most profitable teams in the nation for years because of our loyal fan base. But you got to think, man, we've already been through this before with the Washington Bullets changing them to the Wizards and so forth. And Dan Snyder is very pig-headed when it comes to business. Most people are. That's why they are successful businessmen. But I think it all came down to the fellow who actually had all the trademarks and basically publicly said that he would give them away for free. Snyder just had to ask him for them, and it was no problem. Snyder was too pig-headed to even ask him for the trademarks that he actually already owned. And that's what the thing it all boiled down to. So for us to not have a name, it's embarrassing, man. But again, being a part of DC sports, again, I was raised to stick with the home teams. So no matter what, you stick with the home team. So I am a Washington Wizards I'm a Washington football team now. I am a Nationals. I am a Capitals. I'm a Mystics fan. That's just the way I was raised. For good, bad, ugly, you stick with your home teams. But I am very vexed right now because this is I am concerned about how we are seen universally, nationwide, and worldwide, given that you have so many teams that have moved, you have so many expansion teams that it was like nothing to it. You had a press conference, you revealed what the logo was going to be, you revealed the name, and you go from there. And for this to become about business still with the fellow that actually has all the trademarks, basically of what they were considering or wanted the name to be. Um, Calling us to watch the football team, and the memes that went out, the texts that I received, the phone calls I received. It's me, Dan. I'm Mr. Talkative, man. And it's very, very rare when I can't be defensive or defend things at all. And Snyder made up it that day last week where I could not defend or say anything with all of the criticism and all of the shots that I was taking. I had to take them all because I couldn't say anything. It was nothing for me to say. So that's where I am as a fan, and it totally sucks. So with me, quite frankly, and I said this in my social media page, I'm very sensitive to the name. I'm very aware. As times change, you have to evolve and realize the sensitivity of things. But that logo, that emblem, whatever you want to call it, of that redskin, um, was defined differently with me being from DC as a kid. That redskin logo meant heritage, it meant pride, it meant survival, it meant being powerful, it meant being content, it meant being patient. Like it's so many other characteristics with that logo meant for me as a kid and as a teenager and as a fan. That's kind of got twisted into that name being what it is, and I get it. But again, I was raised differently. It was advertised to me differently, and that's my foundation. So I'm going to be a Redskins fan until we become competitive again. So we changed the name, and things don't change. Under the Redskins name, we got 3 rings, baby. Under the Redskins name, we had Sean Taylor, we had Darrell Green, we had Doug Williams, we had Art Monk, we had Gary Clark, we had Joe Box. Like that's my foundation. So I'm keeping that, and no one can take that from me because I invested too much money, I invested too much time. This is my entire life, if you will, childhood, teenage, and adulthood, being a fan of the Washington team. So the fact that they didn't do things properly, it's all business. And I am a diehard fan. I can't be about business right now, man. You want to look at business, look at the money I've invested with what you see behind you, with all these jerseys and these Super Bowl rings I got behind me and helmets and like I'm a fan, man. But I get it, I understand. But we should have went about it. We meaning Snyder, because he's the owner. He could have went about it an entire different way. He didn't. And at the end of the day, again, I'll repeat, it's embarrassing. Embarrassing. No question. And that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, you pretty much said everything that I feel, because like I said, for me, I already accepted it already. There's a lot of racial tension, social and racial injustice going on, and for me too. Like it's like a part of you died. You know what I mean? A
Mm-hmm.
part of you died when they said goodbye to the Redskins name,
Mm-hmm.
because all you remember, like you when you were a child, you didn't remember about being like racism or being a racist. All you cared about was that football team on Sundays.
RFK was jumping
Hmm.
every Sunday they were home. We're
Yep.
talking about going down East Capitol Street.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, man! Between Benning Road and East Capitol, going from uptown to Florida Avenue, man, it's again, um, yeah, it's and FedEx is cool, but FedEx is not RFK Stadium.
No, no.
So um, it's some changes that have to be made. This being one of them, and I wish they would have went about it an entirely different way. But I think it came down to that guy owning the trademarks and Snyder saying, "I'm not asking anyone for anything. You know who I am," and that's one of those things in which, he owns a team. He can do what he is the owner. So I just don't rock with the owner now. At this point in time, I just don't.
No one is. So everybody feels the same way. So yeah, we're pretty much narrowing down, towards our couple questions. Um,
Definitely.
so how are things different with the current state of sneakers and how it was back in the day? Like, your honest opinion.
Honestly, man, to keep it not to be too long winded, the selfishness, the greed, the entitlement, and just people, I would say, conforming to being frauds. I'm a very spiritual guy. I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that um, everyone at birth is a giver, is kind. You're A lot of things are in our DNA, but you have to either be taught or you have to want to do something that's evil or cruel or not know any better or not be trained a certain way. And I think that the fraud and the greed and the selfishness of folks have really changed the game, and it's made things ugly, if you will, in the hobby. It's kind of giving it a black eye, and it's all across the board. So I can't be your old head and say, you kids are doing this, you kids are doing that. Because I can tell you right now, I can name to you 5 or 6 40-year-olds that have conformed to this BS. I can tell you that it's a lot of people I don't rock with now, and I'm not saying any names that you guys know, who are very famous on IG now, who, on Niketalk 10, 15 years ago were notorious for defrauding people. And I'll leave it at that. And they know who they are. And I'm not saying that over time, wounds aren't healed, but they didn't do the right thing to make sure the forgiveness could be divine. I'll just put it like that. So I realized with this game, I don't forget a name, I don't forget a scenario. And a lot of guys, due to Instagram, due to time, can now, I will say, reform their character, if you will, and be something completely different, something completely new. When I'm like, dude, I knew that dude 10 years. Let me tell you about something he did that he did not clear up, that he did not correct. And that's the reason I'm very strategic about who I am connected to, who I talk to, who I'm attached with, because a lot of these guys out here, man, were just dirty. I'm talking about they were 20, 25 years old, robbing 16, 17-year-olds. And now, a few years later, you're on IG and you're a Nike employee, or you're in California and Hollywood, and you gave yourself a new name and you have 1 million followers, and those people don't have a clue about your character or what you did to get where you are. So I don't rock with a lot of folks, and that's what's going on in this hobby, in which people don't have an identity, and they don't have an identity that's positive and that's God-like. And I hate to say that because I sound kind of self-righteous, but that's where I stand. And if you don't like it, then fine. That's where I'm at, and that's how I've kind of always been. I'm not saying there wasn't issues before in the hobby, but it was the minority. And I think that the pendulum has now changed because with these bots and with everyone, like you said, guys are really like losing sleep over a release. So it gets to the point that it becomes almost like the streets. What are you going to do to get what you want? So it eventually, hate to say this because it sounds kind of harsh, a sneakerhead becomes a crackhead. They become a meth head. They become equivalent to a heroin addict, because that's how you approach things. But you think because of sneakers, then it's not that bad. Yeah, if you look at your characteristics and how you're going about things, it is that bad. You're selling your soul. You're selling your family. You're stealing to get what you want. You're no different than anyone out here that's an addict that needs to get help. And that's what's going on a whole lot in this hobby, but it's being masked because it's sneakers. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, that's what's going on. And a lot of kids that are coming up now, they don't have the opportunity to not be off of social media. So they don't have the opportunity to see what their strengths or weaknesses are, or what their development may be, or what their personality is. So they fall into what they think is hot or popular. So whatever rapper is hot, they're going to follow that. Whatever sneaker is hot, that's what they're going to go for, because they're looking for, instead of establishing their own identity, knowing that God made them unique and distinctive in their own right, they don't have the opportunity because they're so pressed about wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to be popular, wanting to be known, wanting to be liked, if you will. So that like button on Instagram, some people's lives depend on that, man. So what is it worth to you to make sure you get those likes? And I'm telling you, man, I've seen a lot of criminal behavior and a whole lot of corruption and a whole lot of unethical behavior for folks trying to get them like buttons, or trying to get them follows, and trying to get their reputation, man. And it is sad. It is sad.
Yeah, well, at least, like I said, like what's most important, like you always say, just stay true to yourself. You know what's wrong, what's right. You don't have to be a sheep. You just do your, follow what makes you happy.
Indeed.
Yeah. So very last question, Kevin, and I do appreciate the time
Oh,
that
no
you
problem.
taking. So last question for you. Ask me a question.
Definitely. I just wanted to ask you as far as how you have evolved in the sneaker game. Where are you now as a husband, as a dad, compared to 10 years ago, as far as how you go about um, obtaining your stuff, how you go about even when you see something you want it and you're not losing sleep over not getting it? Like, how have things changed or evolved, and where you are in the hobby right now as compared to 10 years ago?
That's a good question. So, when I was single, had no wife, no kid, of course, like I was all about like myself. You know, Me and RJ, we would, strategic. All right, let's go. We're gonna camp out. We're gonna wait, X amount of hours. You know what I mean? And we did it respectfully. Like we knew the manager knew us, so like we had our lines for ourselves. So we did our own thing,
Mhm.
and materialistically, of course, it accumulated for us, and over time, I knew at some point these shoes, they're not gonna last forever for me. So what I did was like when I moved out here to California, I sold about I'd say about a third or two-thirds of my shoes for a down payment for a house.
There you go.
So my wife,
Been there.
yeah, you know, so like nobody told me to do it. My wife didn't tell me to do it. Like I knew that I had monetary value, like with these shoes, because I knew at some point these new buck, this suede, this leather, it's gonna fall apart at some point.
Mhm.
So the time is ticking. I might as well just sell it for profit, let someone else like have these good memories with with these shoes. And I can't speak with RJ, but perhaps he may have went through something as well where he sold like a majority of his shoes where it was time for him to just move on.
Mhm.
Uh, so like comparing like now, like what I was saying, like if I don't get the shoe, I'm not gonna lose sleep on it. And like I said, like just like RJ, like I would be bothered like if I don't get a pair or if I don't get my size or I can't attain it, that would really like upset me. But knowing now that I have a family, it's better for me to just use my energy towards like reading with my kid or like like taking my family, like cooking for them at home, or going like Disneyland, like before the whole pandemic thing. Those small things, like it made me realize, you know what, like I had these memories with these shoes. These shoes actually put a roof under my head. I'm very thankful like for these memories that I had. Um, and I just have to all like me and RJ we always talk about like these memories that we have with shoes. We always talk about like like the Niketalk like outlet thread, right? That was like 100%. Like I would say a lot more majority of the shoes that I accumulated came from that. A lot of
Mhm.
people to this day they don't believe, and you know about that, Kev. Like people didn't know like we bought Air Max ones for 29.99, and I
Easily.
know
And
you still got your pairs. I know you still got your pairs.
I have the receipt to prove it.
Yep,
I
and
still
have
have the receipt
receipts
to prove
too.
it.
So like, of course, like it was time for me to make my money, flip them, make what makes what's used to it, and then buy a home.
Mhm.
I have no regrets. Like I had all these memories with these shoes. Um, and for me, like it made me mature too as a better person. Like I said, I still like shoes to this day. I still buy shoes, but not as much. But like I said, I get excited when I see a shoe. But if I don't get it, I don't get it.
Understood.
You know? So you feel the same way, right?
1,000%, man. It's all about the evolution of growing up, and when you grow up, man, you talk about wisdom and experience, and you
Yeah,
realize your priorities change. And that's a great thing because all I'm hearing is growth, and that's
yeah,
what you want to do, and that's the evolution of man. You don't want to be in the same spot, at 35, 40 that you were 18 and 19. What went wrong those 20 years. So again, shoes paid for my honeymoon. Shoes were a part of us getting out of a couple of financial disasters that we were unexpecting, and it was instant. It wasn't. It was one of the things which you had to say, okay, fine. How much this stuff mean to me? My family's on the line, or my honeymoon's on the line, or we had this huge house repair. Like let me go and get rid of 4 or 5 things, and like you said, at any time, you can get those things back. But then you realize, like, I had my time, and that was that era. You know what I mean? So I get it. And the thing is, again, like I mentioned earlier, maybe half an hour or so ago, we're in a very distinctive hobby in which you have the opportunity to get 70 to 80% back of what you actually paid. Sometimes
Exactly.
100, sometimes over 100%, because you may have something that have
Yeah.
appreciated a whole lot more used than what you paid retail.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the game that we're in. But with that, people are starting to realize the money that's involved and the greed and so forth. But this is a very particular hobby. So when people talk about, you know, going out to eat and this, that, and the third, I'm like, no, I'm cool. I will go buy the sneaker because I know I'm gonna have something to eat that's going to either maintain or appreciate in value. And that's what we have. So your story is very similar to mine and a lot of other people's, man, in which you had this perfect timing in which before those shoes fell apart, or they were remade, so the value went down. You executed your smarts, your intelligence, and your timeliness into doing something that was bigger, that would appreciate, which is a home, which is what
Yep.
it's all about. You didn't put it into a motorcycle or to a
Yeah.
Cadillac or
Yeah.
something that you already know that that's going to be gone in a few years. So definitely, man, it shows you the evolution of your maturity, man. It's good to hear that, because that story, I like to hear that story as opposed to other stories that I've heard from other folks. That's for sure. I'm not going there yet. You
Yeah.
took all those shoes and bought a used Beamer that lasted you all the 5 years. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we definitely appreciate Kevin for taking the time for listening to your stories, and and also learning a few new things about what you went through, and what humbled you to where you are today. We definitely want you to get, we will get you back for another round, especially
please,
RJ has a lot of questions regarding like
please.
Nike basketball. He's a
Yeah,
big
because
Nike basketball head.
understood, man. Just it's an honor and a privilege again. Love you guys podcast, what you guys are doing. We haven't even touched the surface yet as far as
No,
my
no.
beef with celebrities, and
Oh, we gotta go through that, man.
we haven't touched the surface of a whole bunch of stuff as far as with Niketalk, definitely. But looking forward to it, man. I realize it's already been over an hour and a half, man. It's kind of crazy, but looking forward to it, man. Anything I can do for you guys as far as the
Oh,
podcast and so forth, I'm here.
I appreciate it. Well, once again, what's your social media handle, Kevin?
Gosh, man. It's my first time ever doing this. I think it's so cliche when I hear people do this. Now I'm doing this for the first time ever. I am on Instagram. I sure how old I am. Let me go to Instagram now so I can give you the right handle. I'm really showing my age now. If I gotta go
Oh, that's
look up my
cool.
handle
You
to show
got
you
you
my
gotta
handle.
come correct.
Oh my gosh, no, this is all age right here. Because it was 1:00 in the morning here, 1:30 to be exact in East Coast, and I've lost my mind. My handle is EOH _ Nike Talk _ OG. So Eyes of Hazel. I kept my same screen name as it was back then, Nike Talk, but it's EOH, those letters _ Nike Talk NIKETALK _ OG. EOH Nike Talk _ OG. And it's basically a page dedicated to the love of sneakers and the love of music and everything that goes in between those two things. So I keep it light, and that's what it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Once again, we definitely gonna get you back here. Like I said, RJ does want to come back to get you
Understood.
back. Yeah. So yeah. So signing off. This is Dan, and we got Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.